My name is Josh Teagarden, and this is my story. When I was a kid, I grew up in a home that was broken. My parents were divorced when I was 5 or 6 because my mom had cheated on my dad. My dad was involved in the production and trafficking of drugs in Indiana. So that led to me jumping between houses. When I was at my mom's, it was pretty easy. She worked a lot, but we had food, and when she was there, she would take care of us. However, when I was at my dad's, it was the opposite story. He was never around, and when he was, he spent a lot of time in his room with his friends. And me and my brother and sister kind of had to grow up really fast because we had nobody to take care of us. We then had to take care of ourselves. This led to me separating myself from pretty much anybody. My dad had hurt me too much for me to want to be around and trust him, and my mom had pretty much ignored me to be with her new boyfriend and eventually new husbands and all these things. And so I hated everything. And as I grew up, this hatred grew stronger in me. And come middle school, I needed a place to put it. And so I started using drugs. And I started messing around with girls, and all that did was make, the hatred go away, but then depression sank in, and to get rid of depression, because I hated emotional pain, I would then make it physical by cutting myself. And so as that went on, my mom found out, and she would punish me for punishing myself, and at that time my stepdad was physically abusive on top of me getting the punishment that they thought I deserved for my actions. And it just all piled on and piled on and piled on. And so the cutting continued, the drug use worsened, and the promiscuous lifestyle that I had seen my mom lived had then become mine. And my only goal in life was to get what I wanted, no matter who I hurt. And so I go through middle school, and I am just this horrible, horrible kid, and I'm lost, and I'm broken, and nobody can fix me. I was raised in an atheist home, so I hated the idea of a God. I couldn't even imagine there being one. If I lived the life that I lived, there can't be a God. And then freshman year rolled around, and I was able to find some new friends, and all these things still continued. But some people on my football team reached out to me and said, "Hey, come to youth group." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And they were like, "Well, there's free dinner." And so, of course, me being who I was as an offensive lineman, I was in. Any mention of free food, I was there. And so I went, and I heard them talk about Jesus and God, and how loving and caring of a father he was. And that didn't make sense in my mind. And the youth pastor at that time, and she's still there today, reached out and just loved me for some reason. She paid attention to me. She asked me questions about my life, and truly wanted to invest in me. But I never accepted Christ there. But if it wasn't for her doing what she did, I wouldn't be here today. Because shortly after I got involved in that youth group, I was moved away from all my friends and the church to Wisconsin, where I had nobody. And now I'm living with an abusive stepdad and and a mom who doesn't care about me, and brothers and sisters that I don't get along with because I'm the weird one in the family. And so the self-harm got worse, and it was all boiling down to one event. And before that event took place, I cried out to God, and I said, God, if you're real, save me. If you truly have a plan for me, if what Tracy said about you and what all these other kids in that youth group said about you, save me. And then there was this peace that just washed over me, and this feeling of love poured over me, and something changed. And for me, it was almost immediate, the change that it was. I stopped cutting, I gave up drugs, and for the most part, stopped with the girls. And so, if it wasn't for them investing in me the way that they did, I would have never found Christ. And from then on, I began going to a youth group in Wisconsin and began to be discipled by the youth pastor there, and be mentored by the head pastor, and befriended by the worship pastor. And so I had all these people pouring into my life, and it just eventually led to an in-depth relationship with Jesus. And I couldn't be more thankful for the people who invested in me so that I could know Christ. And that is my story. That is how I began to believe in Jesus, how I met him. But it didn't end there. From there, I went on to college. And I struggled, but he was with me. And he helped me get through late nights of studying and crying, and maybe some seasonal depression, but I made it through, and I'm graduating. And maybe by the time you watch this, I will have graduated. But that's not the only thing. He's brought me to a place where I'm able to have a wife, and then a kid on the way. And as the days go on, and the more I learn and the deeper I dig into his word, the more I believe, the deeper I trust.